Paths of Glory. The First World War, 1914 to 1918, is a strategy board war game, designed in 1999 by the six-time Charles S.Roberts Awards winner Ted Raicer and published by GMT Games. It covers World War I from its outbreak to the 1918 armistice, or based on the progress of the game, a hypothetical later ending of the war in early 1919, possibly due to exhaustion of Europe. The game is played on a map of Europe and the Middle East as the game board. Gameplay. Unlike many other war games with hex maps, this game uses a point-to-point system, with all spaces costing one movement point to move between. Difficult terrain being represented by fewer links between spaces. A unit may not both move and attack in the same activation. Most game turns represent seasons, although there are a few extra turns to allow more maneuver in the summer and autumn of 1914. Counters represent corps and armies. Counters for the latter being physically larger and attacking on a more favorable table to represent artillery support. Corps may be deployed on the map as needed, or kept in the off-map reserve box. Armies which take losses are also replaced by corps from the reserve box, or are permanently eliminated if no such corps is available. So a player must be careful to keep enough corps in reserve. Most minor countries have only corps-sized counters. Up to 3 units may stack in a space. An attacker attacking from multiple spaces may attempt a flank attack. If successful, the attacker attacks first, only after which can the now weakened defender fire back. The opposite is the case if the flank attack fails. This tends to be a key tactic on the more mobile Eastern Front. Players may dig trenches under their counters, which besides weakening the attacker, strengthening the defender and making the defender immune from flank attacks, also allow defeated forces to avoid retreat at the cost of extra casualties, thus potentially making a densely packed Western Front as immobile as it was in reality. Certain other forms of terrain also have similar powers to trenches. The map also contains numerous printed fortresses, which may be destroyed in combat or besieged. Stringent supply restrictions. Units out of supply may not be activated for movement or combat, and are permanently eliminated if supply is not restored. Force players to try to keep continuous lines. Multinational attacks are subject to the restriction that one stack must contain units of each attacking nationality. So a major Anglo-French offensive on the Western Front, to achieve greater attacking strength and to spread the casualties, might require 3 or 4 operations points to activate. The Central Powers are subject to the same restrictions, but have some cards which allow greater German-Austrian cooperation. The game also features an innovative card-driven system where each card may be used for one of 4 distinct actions: operations, strategic redeployment, replacement points, or special events. There are 3 separate decks of cards, the latter 2 being added to the deck in the course of the game. Each turn each player draws a hand of 7 cards, and must take 6 actions, one of which must be a randomly determined, mandated offensive, representing political pressure to make an attack which he might otherwise not have chosen, and which might even be quite inadvisable. For the Allies, a French or Italian mandatory offensive is twice as likely as a British or Russian one. After the German player has played the French mutiny event, French units are instead unable to attack on turns in which a French mandated offensive is rolled. The Central Powers are also subject to mandatory offensives, but German mandatory offensives on the Western Front are less likely as the game progresses, and Hindenburg and Ludendorff are deemed, via play of the relevant cards, to have taken control of Germany's war effort. Special card events play a key role in the game, and ensure that many of the historical events of the First World War take place, if not necessarily in the same order as they occurred in reality. They include the raising of fresh armies, the entry of neutral countries, or the descent of Russia by stages to the fall of the Tsar, the Bolshevik seizure of power, and the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk. American entry is also determined by the play of event cards, is only possible after Russia has become a democracy and does not always occur. It is perfectly possible that the Tsar might fall but the Bolsheviks never seize power, or that the USA might enter the war but never deploy U.S. armies to Europe. Countries may only enter the war on the side which they took in the actual war, i.e., Italy, Greece and Romania can only join the Allies, while Germany cannot attack neutral Holland. If a card is played for its special event, it is removed from the game, so the pack of available cards gradually diminishes as the game progresses. A player may also automatically make a single activation without the need to play a card, which may be necessary if he has played most of the cards out of his hand, or if he is trying to retain a key card in his hand for use on a future turn. Cards with key events are also likely to have high values for operations and replacement points, requiring a player to make critical choices each turn in managing his hand of cards. Other special event cards include particular key offensives, such as the Russian Brusilov or Kerensky offensives, the German Verdun, Michael and Blucher offensives or the Allied Gallipoli and Salonika landings. Other events include the sortie of the German High Seas Fleet and German unrestricted U-boat warfare, which prevents deployment of US or British reinforcements until defeated by play of the Allied convoy card. Other cards may be used to affect the outcome of combat roles. These include able generals such as Kemal, von Below, or Putnik, or new weapons such as poison gas, mine attacks, flamethrowers or tanks. Each side has an air superiority combat card, which may appear at various times during the game, reflecting fluctuations in air superiority, whereas many combat cards are one-off events, removed from play after a single use. Several Allied combat cards may be repeatedly drawn from the deck, and allow the Allies to gain a slight tactical edge in the latter part of 1918 as they are drawn more frequently from the small number of cards remaining in the game. Victory is determined by control of objective spaces. If the game follows historical lines, the Germans will gain objectives in Russia and Romania, while the Allies will gain objectives in Turkish-held Palestine and Mesopotamia. The Allies will also gain a few victory points from their blockade of Germany and from events such as the Lusitania sinking, but will still need to recapture some German-held objectives in Belgium if they are to reach their historical victory level. However, the rules also suggest that in competitive play, players bid to pay the highest victory point handicap for the privilege of playing the Allies, suggesting that the Central Powers, who have to juggle multiple fronts with limited resources, are in fact the harder side to play. Awards. The game has won the 1999 Charles S. Roberts Awards for Best Pre-World War II Board Game, the 2000 International Gamers Award, and the game's 100 Best Historical Simulation Game in 2001. Expansions and related games. In 2001, GMT released the add-on Paths of Glory Player's Guide, which is a 48-page booklet containing articles with tips, tactics, strategies and game variants. In addition, it includes 20 new cards and a 1/4 sheet of additional counters. The GMT game Barbarossa to Berlin by Ted Raicer covers the Second World War in Europe, 1941-5, with a very similar game system. The game Pursuit of Glory by Brad Stock and Brian Stock, covering the First World War against the Ottoman Empire in greater detail, was published by GMT Games in the autumn of 2008. Another spin-off game, Illusions of Glory, covering the Italian, Eastern and Balkan fronts in more detail, was published in 2015.